And what we can do is really simply by recognizing, I'm there. I've hit it. I've gone as far as I can. We can start to assess, what do I need to rest?
So I am so excited to have Mellisa Parnell with us again today, and we're going to be wrapping up our series on burnout. This is especially directed to pastors and ministry leaders, although all of us can experience burnout. So the principles will still apply, but we're going to have some special notes for pastors. Today we're going to talk about, okay, we're in full-blown burnout. We're in the middle of it. So what can we do? Is there something to do, or do I just need to quit everything and, start over? What are the action steps that we can take?
Yeah, I love that.
Help.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Angela, it's interesting that when we, as helping professions, we can find ourselves in burnout spots. And sometimes it can feel really overwhelming, or we can kind of deny them. Mm-hmm. So we can find ourselves in full-blown burnout where our bodies are telling us we can't take any more, or our brains are saying, I'm too overwhelmed. And sometimes we'll kind of push it down and think, other people are showing up. They're consistently doing better. They have larger congregations, or they have more people that they're supporting. I can continue doing this.
Kind of a comparison thing that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And our brains, will notice these things. But I think the most important thing to recognize is simply the fact that, I'm experiencing burnout, major. And getting to the place where we can say comfortably, okay, thank you, God, for showing me through my body that I've hit my cap. I can't continue on at this level. And what we can do is really simply by recognizing, I'm there. I've hit it. I've gone as far as I can. We can start to assess, what do I need to rest? What do I need to bring my brain and my body back down to the place where I can be as effective as possible? And, having experienced burnout myself in the midst of the pandemic as a mental health clinician, I can speak to it pretty succinctly in recognizing that one of the first things that we can do is simply take off all the extra things. So one of the things that I noticed in the middle of, caseloads being extremely high, there was literally not an extra hour in the day. I found myself with a 37-person client load per week. And in particular, right at the end, it was about in November of 2020.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, I can't continue. And I think sometimes we think, I can do a little bit more because this, for such a time as this, right?
Yeah.
We've come into this.
I'm called.
Yes, absolutely. I'm called to this. I know that I have something that can help people. But we also have to have fuel in our own tanks in order to be able to be effective at the work that we do. So for me, taking a step back looked like not volunteering at my children's school for a period of time. I would wake up every morning and volunteer in the temperature checks, and then I would have a full caseload for the day, and then I would have to pick up my kids and make sure they were okay, and it was a lot. And so recognizing, number one, I need to take the things that are not absolutely necessary off of my plate and give myself grace and freedom to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Number
two, to build in that margin in there. I was just going to say, if anybody's listening to this, if you're thinking that you're in burnout, a great podcast to listen to is Carrie Newhoff's most recent podcast with Gordon McDonald, where he talks about a time where he just hit a wall and really broke down. And something that his wife actually told him was just stop, eat. He had a cry, like a good 4-hour cry. And he's like, and I'm not a crier, kind of thing. And then she said, ask God, what is he saying to you? And I thought that was so good just to ask that kind of question. And I might be jumping ahead, but I just thought, there are a lot of resources out there to, that will help you to maybe reassess where you're at. But I love, so number one, you said to take off all the extra things so you can build in some of that margin. So what else would you speak to?
Yeah, Angela, I love that you talked about margin, especially because I think having margin in order to be able to take a breath, right? Sometimes we're traveling at such a rapid speed that we're not able to simply take a breath and recognize, how am I? How am I with God? What is my body feeling like today?
Yeah.
How is my brain feeling? And so simply taking some tasks off of our plate and then moving into asking, how am I doing? How are you, God? What is my relationship together with you? Am I spending time in prayer and in the word together with you as a task that needs to get done? Or am I enjoying it because I have the space to be in communion with you?
Right. Because I'm with you.
Yeah. And then taking time to transition into a space where what looks right for me moving forward. So yes, a lot of us in helping professions can speed up and really be at that sprint level where we're very high achieving, we're showing up, we're doing the hard thing, and then we have to dial it back. And I think specifically in helping professions, that's a place where we struggle.
Yep.
We struggle to recognize, okay, well, I was able to perform at this high level for so long, I should be able to continue that.
Yeah.
And I want to call out the should.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that we like to say in therapy is, we should on ourselves a lot. And it's not helpful for us.
Yes.
So when we think about, those should statements, they don't come from God. God has a very clear commandment moving forward, and he's very clear about what his expectations are of us. And the shoulds often come up in very gray areas.
Right.
And so, so I would argue against the should and remember to reframe shoulds into what do I have an opportunity to do and what can I place a boundary around?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it is something to remember that it shoulds often feel condemning. Mm-hmm. And I think if God is convicting you to move towards something, it's to draw closer to him, to draw closer to people and relationships. And so that doesn't feel condemning, like you're bad, but it feels like, hey, come closer. So that's a good challenge to ask yourself, is this drawing me closer to God, or is this making me feel further away from him?
Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's the trickiest. Yeah, the trickiest part in helping professions and working within churches and ministry is that most of these shoulds are good things.
Yeah.
Right? It's so hard to draw boundaries around how many good things can I do while still maintaining what I need.
Right. Yeah, you can't, like you said before, you can't give out of an emptiness. So we're not infinite. God is only infinite. So yeah, that's really good.
Yeah. And then the last piece is checking in, right? So, I think the place where I went wrong in my burnout process was I knew that I was on a path toward burnout. Okay. I could feel it in my body. I could recognize I didn't have the time that I needed to really fill up my tank with exercise, with good nutrition, with checking in with my family, with, enjoying those sweet nuances in relationship. I was overwhelmed for quite a while. And so if I had checked in and actually taken my body and my brain seriously, well before I hit significant burnout, then it would have provided me the opportunity to avoid that. But here we are. I've talked about burnout for years. And I think it was also really important for me to experience it personally, because we can do all of these things to try to create prevention, and then something will come up, like a COVID-19 or, other types of things. And it'll really press us into how do we maintain our standards, even in a time of crisis?
Yes. I think it's true because we can often handle a lot until it's almost like that one thing that kind of pushes us over. But really, if each time we face a real difficult challenge, we're doing what you're talking about, is that checking in, even checking in with, a counselor or our spouse or a really close friend or our pastor. And pastors, you need to have those people to check in with, because it's not good for you to be isolated. So those, friends that you can check in with, that are your mentors, people that are maybe further along in their walk with the Lord or in ministry years, that you can really connect with, that you can say, hey, like, what are you seeing that maybe I'm not seeing? I've had these challenges. Maybe you've faced death in the family. Maybe it's been, something like a move or a transition in ministry, a transition in your family dynamics. We definitely had that in our family this year. My son got married last year. Our daughter graduated high school in the same year. I mean, there were all kinds of things. And so you're like, even when they're happy things, they can still be stressful things. And so
Absolutely.
Those are the times where you're going, okay, I'm checking in with my accountability people and saying, this is where I'm at. This is when I'm feeling some overwhelm and I need the support and prayer. You don't want to reach the point where, like you said, okay, my body's breaking down. My emotions are, at the surface level. What would you recommend today to someone who feels like, even those things are probably not going to be enough for me? I think I've kind of gone over the edge of my breakdown, and I don't know if I can even do this on my own.
I mean, we've had a lot of that happen, especially, in the last 18 months. And I think one thing to recognize is it's okay to have to take a step back. Yeah. And I think sometimes that feels so big and almost like a failure to recognize. And also within the spiritual realm, like there's so much surrounding this idea of having to take a step back and regroup. But I would recommend really giving yourself the grace and opportunity to talk to the elder board, to talk to your executive pastor, to talk to the team about what can I do to step away, regroup, lean what I need to, take some time so that I can show up in fullness when I come back. And there's no shame there. There's no shame in that spot. It's a tough place to be. And also we're human.
Right. And I think the idea sometimes when you talk about sabbatical with pastors or even like an extended vacation, it seems like, oh, that's just for people who, are from big churches or, that's like, the special people that get to do that. But there is a way to work that into your, framework for your life so that people know that this is resting to work, not resting from work. And this is an enabling to, fill yourself up so that you can do the work of the ministry. The expectation that you can do that for 50 years and then retire is unrealistic. And so, bring this video to your to your board and say, this is what the counselors are saying. This is what is recommended. It's so important to have that time away so that you can rest in order to be able to work. And I think it was Alicia Britt-Chole who talks about that, and any of her books are really great for just really caring for your soul, not just thinking about what you do for God, but who you are. So important. Well, thank you so much, Mellisa, just for...
Angela, I appreciate it. One other note to keep in mind along the lines of what you were talking about is we see a lot more burnout specifically in pastors that have moved churches or moved roles. So when we see pastors that are moving from youth pastor to associate pastor at a new church body to, another family pastor at another church body, we tend to look over those individuals for burnout or for sabbatical because we assume that as a new face, they have a fresh perspective and a fresh experience, and they may be coming into their next body feeling pretty depleted.
Right. So it's like they could have been a youth pastor for 10 years and never had that time off. And then they're coming into this new position, and being expected to be at this high level. I think that that's something to even recognize for those that are in leadership. Thinking about this, like, how appropriate would it be to have a month of time where they're resting before they even get into that role? I think it's a really good thing to think about, and even to ask for, like, just be honest. This is something that is needed.
Mhm.
I know that we think, oh, it's important. We just want to hit the ground running, but God is able to sustain people. It's a month, it's 2 months.
Mhm.
Just believe that He can make a way, even when we can't creatively think of it ourselves, but He can. So I think that's a
Mhm.
really good point. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us today?
Oh,
Before
just thank you so much for having me, Angela. It was such a pleasure to be here.
Well, I'm so glad that you were here, and I would love it if people would just make some comments in the notes below. We'd love to, answer your questions and just get your perspective on what it's like to be in the middle of burnout, if that's where you are, or if you've been kind of watching this series and have seen kind of the progression of the way things have been unfolding for you. Just love to hear from you. Please connect with us there in the comments, and can't wait to see you next time. Thanks again, Mellisa.
Thank you.
Big thank you to His Heart for supporting this channel. If you want more information for you and those you love on mental health, go to mentalhealth.academy today.